guys and welcome back to my channel. If you're new, my name's Ailey. Today's video I wanted to do a little sort of comparison between the old Jaclyn Hill palette and the new Vault collection, just to see kind of what similarities there are between the palettes, because some people, if you have this, you may not want to go out and spend all of your money on all of these, because the warm toned palettes may have kind of similar shades in this palette. Because I know that a lot of people can't afford to go out and buy this and then go out and buy this. So is it worth your money getting the whole Vault collection if you already have this? Or could you do with just getting a couple of the palettes or something like that? So I decided to have a little bit of an investigate and do some swatch comparisons, and this is what I came up with. So I'm going to kind of talk to you here about it anyway, but I will put up things on the screen so you can see a little bit more closer up what I'm talking about. So we have some here. This is really difficult. I hate doing swatches. But anyway, I started off with the Ring the Alarm palette, and as you've seen, I've just literally jumped straight into this video because I've done a couple of really long videos recently and I want to make this one a little bit shorter for you. So yeah. Before I start, if you want to see any of my review videos and demos on these babies, I will link them up here for you as the video goes on. I've done each palette individually and done a look with each one. This is one of the looks, and yeah, that's pretty much it. So we'll just crack straight on. Like I said, I started with the Ring the Alarm palette and just basically had a little look to see if there was anything similar. I've done the top row, and in the top row so far we have Lolly. So Lolly is most similar to Sissy, and they're reasonably similar. I mean, looking at them, I'll look at them here, but I will put them on the screen for you. I would say definitely the Sissy is more pink based and Lolly is more of a sort of rosy orangey tone, definitely. The next one is Rush, obviously from the Ring the Alarm palette. I found that one most comparable to Butter, but as you can see, Butter is a little bit darker. The tones are really similar, but it's just a little bit darker. Then we move on to On Camera, which is a really gold, and the only one it is similar to is Queen, but Queen is more of a coppery undertone, and On Camera is very sort of yellow gold. Next is Boom, is most similar to Firework, and I would say these two are really close. Firework's got a little bit more red in it, but you know, they're close enough that they could sort of be duped out for one another. Next one is Alert, and Alert is most similar to Butter again, but again, it's not quite the same tone. It's more of a red tone than Butter is. So there's enough similarities there. I would say the closest ones are probably Boom and Firework, but they are pretty close in shades. So if you wanted similar shades, then I would say go for it, but if you could do without something that similar, then obviously you could just stick with the Jaclyn Hill palette. Okay, so the next row down we've got Bomb Ass, and to the closest one in the original palette is Cranapple, and Cranapple is a lot darker in pigment. It's not as vibrant red as Bomb Ass is. Next one along is Siren. Closest to it in the original palette is probably Jax, and Jax is just a little bit more wine toned, if that makes any sense. Mugshot is next. This one is probably most similar to Pukey, but Pukey is just a little bit more cool toned, slightly. Next is Framed. And closest to it, I would say, is either Chip or Jax again. So Jax is just a little bit browner than Framed. Framed's a really kind of rich purple shade. And the last one is Secret, and I would definitely say that it's closest to Mocha. It's just a little bit more warm toned than Mocha is, so yeah. Okay, so that was the Ring the Alarm palette. We'll have a little look in Bling Boss. First of all, we'll take Bling Bling, and that could be quite similar to Obsessed from the original palette. It isn't quite as pink. Obsessed is a little bit more mauvey than it is pink like Bling Bling. Hush Hush, there is nothing like Hush Hush in this palette. Gem, people were saying it's quite similar to Royalty, and swatching them together, you'll see that Gem is just much more rich purple. It's slightly lighter and it's very rich in colour. Zaz is next, and it could be compared to Cranapple. They are very similar. Yeah, Cranapple's maybe a slight touch more brown than Pizzazz is, but they're really similar. Mystic is probably the closest to Chip, but Chip's just, it's more brown. Going back to Bling Bling just for a second, realised that there's a closer match for it, and that is Faint. Put them on my hand and show you there. Not exact, but they are pretty close, probably closer than the other two. So you've got a few shades in there that are comparable, but not all of them. So there are some really unique shades in there. And even the ones that are similar, they're not crazy similar. Dark Magic palette, I think, is going to have the least in it. So I'm just going to have a quick look at that while my arm stops being on fire because of all the swatches I've had to do. So looking at it, there isn't really any comparison for Poof. Power Cut, there isn't really anything comparable to either. Shush is the same. Trickery could be a little bit similar to Diva, but Diva is much more sort of silvery and Trickery is very kind of foresty green, just with a really metallic finish. Only other two that might be remotely similar are Inside Job and Enchanted. They are reasonably similar, as you can see there. And then Mojo is quite similar to Central Park. Probably the closest I've seen yet. They are really similar. And Temptress, again, is just black, so it is comparable to Abyss. But as you can see, this one is Temptress and then this one is Abyss. So even, I mean, if I try and sort of build that up a little bit, it's still really nicely pigmented. I didn't bother doing that on my arm just because my arm's like red raw just now, and I knew there was only going to be a couple in that palette that were comparable. Okay, so going into the last palette, and that's Armed and Gorgeous. There's nothing like VIP. Access could be compared to Creamsicle, but Creamsicle is darker, it's sort of a more mustardy tone. Access is quite bright. Guilt Trip is like nothing in this palette. Coin is like nothing in this palette. Agent is like a mix between Creamsicle and Butter, I would say. If you were to mix them two together, you might get Agent. There's nothing like Top Secret. Smooth Criminal's pretty unique as well, but if I had to compare it to something, I would compare it to Pooter, and it's just a darker version of Pooter, probably is the best way to describe it. Secure is, again, it's a little bit like Agent. It's a mixture of a couple of colours in there. Prowl is a kind of dark brown, very like Mocha. In fact, they are very similar. I'll show you in the close-ups. And then Classified is probably closest to Queen, but Queen is a little bit more bronze. Classified's a little bit more copper, I think I would say. Okay, so I think that's pretty much it. My arm is now red raw. I hope that that made some sort of sense. So I think, for me personally, I would say there's enough differences between the palettes to warrant having every single one of them. But I would say the most different out of all of them is probably Dark Magic. There's only a couple of shades in here that are you're able to really compare to the original. This one's definitely a really unique palette. Armed and Gorgeous is my favourite palette out of the whole bunch. So I would say no matter what your feelings are, get this palette if you like any of these colours at all. Obviously a lot of people won't like some of these colours, but if you like these colours you will love this palette. So whether or not it was similar, I was going to say get this palette. And then Ring the Alarm is probably the closest because it is the warm tone palette. So I would say if you are worried about, you know, not being able to afford to get all of them, see what ones that you use, because the the shades are different enough that you could get away with having them. But yeah, that's pretty much it. So I thought that this was going to be a cool and interesting little experiment just to see a little bit the similarities. Obviously they were going to be similar because she apparently designed all of these shades while she was creating this. So if you think about it, it would make sense that these shades are similar to things that are in here because they were created at the same time as this, and they were the ones that didn't make it in. So yeah, so I think that's pretty much it, but I will leave a link to Morphe's website down below. I'm not affiliated with them, don't worry, it's not an affiliate link or anything like that, but if you want to get your hands on them, they are still available on the UK website as far as I know. So if you enjoyed this video, I would love if you would give it a thumbs up and subscribe to my channel. I do post videos every Monday, Wednesday and Friday, so hopefully I will see you in the next one. Bye.